A few weeks back, the convoy carrying outsized parts of the final Airbus A380 Super Jumbo Jet arrived in southern France. Residents of the city greeted the trucks with tears and applause. Why? Because this marks an end of an era. Not only was the Airbus A380 the biggest airplane to be ever built by humans, but also because this marks an onset of an imminent death of large airplanes around the world. So in order to commemorate its farewell, we decided to give you 5 astonishing facts about the aircraft that made it a legend in its 13 years of service. It is a well-known fact that the Airbus A380 was touted against the Boeing 747. However, not a lot of people know that the two rivals had once considered joining forces. In 1993, the two companies came together to study the potential market size of very large airplanes. This partnership, however, fell apart 3 years later after Boeing decided to not invest on the idea of another jumbo jet. However, as Airbus pressed on, the project A3XX was born, which was later renamed to A380. Interestingly, by the year 2000, Airbus foresaw a demand for 1,200 jumbo jets in the following 2 decades and decided to build as many as 750 planes. However, as the modern twin-jet engines took over, the company decided to halt production in 2021 after having produced just over 250 aircrafts. A double-deck aircraft essentially consists of a main deck and a secondary deck, both dedicated to seating passengers. Today, the only 2 double-deck aircrafts are the Boeing 747 and the Airbus A380. While the 747 is a partial double-deck, the A380 is the only full-length double-deck around the world. In a typical 3-class layout, the Airbus A380 can seat up to 525 passengers, which can be pushed to 853 with a single-class layout. The aircraft is propelled by 4 engines that is available with 2 options, including the Rolls-Royce Trent 900 or the Engine Alliance GP7000 turbofan. It can fly up to 1030 km per hour and can hold up to 81,900 gallons of fuel at a time. This provides it a range of 15,205 km in one trip. To build the Airbus A380, 4 million individual components manufactured by 1,500 different companies are required. To handle the width and weight of the aircraft, several airports had to make notable changes in the past. Sydney Airport, for example, alone had to spend $128 million on upgrades itself. Since its inception over a decade back, the biggest customer buying the A380 from Airbus has been the Emirates. The A380's survival has been directly tied to the Dubai-based airline after having purchased almost half of all the A380s ever delivered. Emirates image subsequently has been built around the gigantic aircraft. The production of A380 would have stopped sooner if Emirates would not have ordered another 3 dozen aircrafts in 2018. However, its demise is also partly due to the airline as it cut down its remaining orders from 53 to 14 in early 2019. As Emirates decided to go for the younger A350s instead, Airbus deduced that its $25 million investment will eventually not pay off. Major European carriers bought the A380, but in modest quantities. However, it is quite surprising that the company failed to sell even 1 unit on the crucial American market. While a very plausible explanation could be a pro-Boeing bias, it should be noted that other Airbus models are extremely successful in the United States. For instance, the American Airlines operates the world's largest fleet of both the Airbus A319 and the A321 airplanes. JetBlue, the 6th largest carrier in the United States, does not have a single Boeing aircraft in its fleet, which is constituted 80% of Airbus planes only. Similarly, US-based United Airlines has the 4th largest order of the A350s. Considering that Boeing too pulled the plug on the 747 recently, we could assume that like the rest of the aviation industry around the world, America too fell out of love for big airplanes. The Airbus A380 is the heaviest commercial aircraft to ever exist. Hence, it was on Airbus's shoulder to convince the passengers that the giant aircraft was as safe as it gets. After its maiden test flight, the A380 was subjected to 2,500 hours of flight tests over the course of 19 months. Test pilots pushed the A380 to its limits, conducting tests in extreme temperature and conditions, and the flight passed every test with flying colors. As the life of the A380 neared its end, Airbus acknowledged its mistakes with the humble giant. This, coupled with a worldwide liking for modern twin jet engines and adaptation of the point to point travel model instead of the traditional hub and spoke model, clearly explains why a jumbo jet makes no sense in today's world. Not to mention, the aviation industry is currently facing one of its worst times during the COVID-19 pandemic. And in a world like this, nothing can be more dreadful for airlines than flying a 4-engine jumbo jet. Hence, it could be said that the A380s that are currently parked could remain parked for a long time to come.